T-minus 10, 9, we have ignition start. 6, the engines are on. 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Liftoff. We have liftoff. The clock is running. These are the words that accompanied NASA's Apollo 8 spacecraft as it blasted into the atmosphere on December 21st, 1968. The crew's mission to be the first humans to orbit the moon soon became extraordinarily successful. It was these astronauts who first witnessed an Earthrise and then provided all of us with the Earthrise photograph. This image, Earth, rising over the horizon of the moon, standing with the black of space surrounding it. Never before had people seen our planet from space. What a remarkable perspective. Apollo 8's crew was also the first to broadcast a live television feed to Earth as they encircled the moon. Days before the launch, Apollo 8's astronauts were asked to prepare words to deliver during their telecast. This confounded them. They were astronauts, not orators. The crew asked friends for help, and one, Christine Layton, said, "Why don't you start at the beginning?" "What do you mean?" they asked. And she said, "Genesis." The broadcast day arrived. The world was captivated. 1 billion people tuned in, the largest audience in history. As grainy black and white images of the moon's surface beamed to Earth, the crew began their words.
We are now approaching lunar sunrise, and for all the people back on Earth, the crew of Apollo 8 has a message that we would like to send to you. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. And the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. And God said, "Let there be light." And there was light. And God saw the light, that it was good.
In the end, they read the initial first 10 verses of the Torah aloud. They had the text printed on their flight plan. They concluded their message with these words: God saw that it was good. And from the crew of Apollo 8, we close with good night, good luck, and God bless all of you on the good earth. How appropriate. Rabbinic legend considers tonight the start of Rosh Hashanah, the birthday of the world, and synagogues around the globe declare, Hayom Harat Olam. Today is the day of Earth's creation. Some congregations substitute the same Genesis text read by Apollo 8's crew in lieu of the traditional Rosh Hashanah Torah portion. Since I was a kid, I've been enthralled by the space shuttle and space travel. I followed every mission and read what astronauts said about their journeys. Many of them reflect on a certain irony. Apollo 8 astronaut Bill Anders explained it this way: "We came to explore the moon, and the most important thing is that we discovered the Earth." Frank White, author, describes this as the overview effect. Astronaut and moon walker Edgar Mitchell described his time in space saying, "You develop a certain instant global consciousness, an intense dissatisfaction with the state of the world and a compulsion to do something about it. From the moon, international politics looks so petty. You want to grab a politician and drag him into space and say, 'Look at that. Look at that.'" These astronauts were given a gift. Confined in their spacecrafts with a window onto the universe, they looked back at Earth and gained a greater perspective and overview of what was most essential. During this past year, we have not ventured into space. We have not been pent up in spacecrafts. We have been here on Earth, confined within our own spaces, our apartments, our homes, our cities. What have we seen through our windows? What perspective have we gained as we've lived through and now incredulously continue to live through the worst pandemic in a century? This is a period of such tremendous upheaval. Our good Earth, as Apollo 8's crew described it, and all of its people, all of us, have suffered. Many are struggling now. We mourn with those of us who lost loved ones. We commiserate with all who lived through the initial dark months of COVID and all that followed. Isolation, working remotely, Zoom schooling, Zoom shuling, Zoom shivas, and for many, economic insecurity, a lot of fear, and so much more. This tumultuous stretch brings us here to Rosh Hashanah. So in addition to the traditional apples, honey, and shofar blast, there's an added resonance in the holiday's charge to contemplate our existence. Rosh Hashanah asks us to pull back in order to gain greater perspective on what we have been doing and how we will go forward. No, we have not been to outer space, but all the turmoil here on Earth provides us with an opportunity for even greater clarity, an enhanced overview effect of our own. Sadly, this is not the first time our people are entering a Rosh Hashanah at the end of a disaster. It turns out we Jews are expert at exiting and harnessing catastrophe to provide a new lens through which to see and live. Frankly, I wish our people had much less expertise in this area. Still, I am inspired, knowing that time and time again our ancestors found a way through calamity by using its lessons to take stock and reorient themselves. We can do this as well. Let's consider how our sages responded to one of the greatest cataclysms in the history of our people, the destruction of the Second Temple in Jerusalem. This occurred 2,000 years ago when there was a power struggle between the Roman Empire, which had conquered ancient Israel, and the locals, the Israelites. Attempting to crush the spirit of our ancestors, the Romans demolished the temple, the center of Jewish ritual life. It was devastating. The Jewish people could have vanished. Instead, we reinvented ourselves. A core source of rabbinic wisdom was born out of this tragedy, a section of the Mishnah known as Ethics of Our Fathers, in Hebrew, Pirkei Avot. Its second verse states, "The world stands on three things: Torah, genuine prayer, and acts of loving kindness. Al shlosha divarim ha'olam omed, al ha'torah, v'al ha'avodah, v'al gimilut chasadim." I know you know this teaching in song. Al Shlosha Divarim. Our sages suffered the most heartbreaking of losses in the destruction of the temple, and yet they were able to envision a new future. Since then, through periods of normalcy or calamity, we have been asked to consider what we have learned and how we will adjust and go forward. So let me restate this Rosh Hashanah charge using the terminology of our rabbis. What 3 grounding principles do you want your world to stand upon? This spring, the Israeli author Etgar Keret published a fictional short story in which he examines who we will be and how we will behave post-pandemic. After months of quarantining, his main character ventures out into the city and encounters a disheveled man begging. And he says to himself, "You remember what you're supposed to do. You walk quickly by him, and when he tells you that he hasn't eaten in days, you look in the opposite direction, avoiding eye contact like a pro. There's nothing to be afraid of. It's like riding a bike. The heart that softened while you were alone in quarantine will harden back up in no time." No, this would be the bleakest of outcomes of this past 18 months for all of our stresses and strains who have taught us nothing for our opened hearts to abruptly close. No, this is not the post-pandemic effect that we are striving for. This is not what our world stands upon. But what should our world stand upon? This past March, Rabbi Jamie Korngold delivered a eulogy. It was for 10 people murdered at a mass shooting at a grocery store in her community of Boulder, Colorado. She said, "The meaning of life is love, full stop." Rabbi Korngold explained that this supermarket is the heart of her neighborhood because the employees and customers really know and care about each other. As an example, she gave and described a day her cognitively impaired mother got lost in the dairy aisle, and one of the employees noticed her. And she called Rabbi Korngold because they were concerned about her mom. Rabbi Korngold concluded her eulogy. "We have lost 10 neighbors. It hurts. The meaning of life is love. We experience love through relationships. To be in relationships, one must be vulnerable, and being vulnerable hurts. Still, I choose love." Love is one of the principles upon which Rabbi Korngold's world stands. Perhaps this is a grounding principle for you as well. Now, I adore these high holy days, but my initial response to this overwhelming question upon what 3 grounding principles does your world stand upon is to be overwhelmed. This is a difficult question for me to answer. And then I stop and I breathe and open up to all of it. I can take my time to figure it out. In Israel, they say la'at, la'at, slowly, slowly. I resonate with what Rabbi Alan Liu teaches, that our souls are making this journey yours and mine, and the trip will go better for us if we know where we're going. I've thought more and decided, I want my world to stand upon acts of loving kindness. Yes, gimilut chasadim, the same grounding principle which our sages prioritized in Pirkei Avot millennia ago. It turns out they were desperate for their fellow Israelite to treat each other with compassion. As I walk through our city and read and watch the local, national, and international news, I long for people to behave with care and respect to one another. The Talmud teaches that it wasn't the Romans that destroyed the temple. Instead, it was the baseless hatred of Jews to fellow Jews that resulted in the fall of Jerusalem. In the wake of such horror, the rabbis set forth a vision of a new Judaism, grounded in the principle of acts of loving kindness toward one another. Recent medical research has shown that engaging in kindness is good for our health. Being kind can actually help us live long and prosper. But we don't need a clinical study. We know the benefits of giving and receiving kindness. Social scientist Dr. Richard Schlachter notes that the pandemic has profoundly affected our social relationships. As this challenging year has gone on and on, I've noticed too many moments when I have not been kind. Too often, I have been impatient, quick to judge, and fast to lose my cool with my family, my friends, and people I don't even know. Author Houston Kraft points out the difference between being nice and kind. Nice happens when it's convenient, when it's comfortable. The sort of kindness we need right now in today's world requires a lot more listening and a lot more sacrifice. He recommends committing to a discipline of kindness so that we engage in it when it is easy and especially when it is hard to do. V'al gimilut chasadim. Out of this terrible pandemic, one principle that I am prioritizing is kindness. In preparation for this sermon, I asked congregants to reflect on the lessons they have learned from all that has transpired. Diane said, I now strive to remember there are at least two sides to every argument. Ella wrote, don't put things off. Make the plans. Buy the tickets. Iris told me, cherish the people you love. Be grateful for health. And also, eat the cake. And Susan said, my three are, slow down. Family and friends are most important. Be gentle on yourself. We've got some wise congregants. You can find additional insight from more of them on my Facebook page. What three grounding principles do you want your world to stand upon? What will you be printing on your flight plan for this new Jewish year? The pandemic has made it clear. Our life's time is precious. Each of us has been provided with an enhanced perspective, our own overview effect. Let us use it wisely. Hayom Harat Olam. Today is the day of Earth's creation. Rosh Hashanah has arrived. Friends, we have liftoff. The clock is running. Our tradition believes in us. It has empowered each of us to chart a course forward through this challenged and wonderful world. What will your path be? Shana Tova.
שמוריק לך וגם לי, אני שר לעצמי, איזה אחלה עולם. השמיים כחולים, ענן הוא לבן, והבוקר בהיר, ובלילה אשן ואחלום לעצמי, איזה אחלה עולם. וכל צבעי הקשת יפים וחדשים, רוסים אחרי הגשם על פני